Think you've seen every old-school horror classic? Think again. Hidden deep in YouTube's archives are rare, chilling, and downright bizarre retro horror films waiting to be rediscovered. From silent creepers to 60s shockers, these are movies the mainstream forgot, but horror fans won't forgive themselves for missing. And best of all, you can watch them tonight, completely free. The Beast of Yucca Flats, 1961. A nuclear test gone wrong. A mute, monstrous killer with a Geiger counter soul, and a desert wasteland crawling with fear. The Beast of Yucca Flats is the kind of zero-budget mutant flick that plays like a fever dream shot through a cracked lens. Former wrestler and cult actor Tor Johnson plays the irradiated brute with blank-eyed menace in a role that never lets him speak, only stalk and strangle. But what truly makes Yucca Flats unforgettable is its bizarre production. Most of the movie was shot silent. All dialogue was added later. That means characters often talk off-screen or with their backs turned. The narration drones like a cryptic prophecy. The editing defies logic. And the story? Barely coherent. But therein lies the charm. It is horror cinema stripped down to radioactive bones. No polish. No excuses. Just atomic horror raw from the fallout. The creature's backstory. A defecting Soviet scientist turned mutant adds Cold War paranoia to the madness. Even the opening scene with a random nude murder feels like it wandered in from another reel. The desert becomes a graveyard for reason. If you're into outsider horror that feels like it came from an alternate reality, this is the film. A drive-in monster classic without a map or breaks, and it's free right now on YouTube. Phantom Ship, 1935. Long before found footage and ghost ships filled multiplexes, there was Phantom Ship, a fog-shrouded mystery horror hybrid starring the legendary Bela Lugosi. Inspired by the real-life mystery of the Mary Celeste, this film plunges you into the creaking wooden bones of a merchant ship whose crew vanishes one by one under terrifying circumstances. It's not just spooky, it's suffocating. The production drips with maritime dread. Low-lit cabins, wet decks, wind-snarled rigging. You can practically feel the salt drying on your skin. Lugosi plays a bitter sailor haunted by past trauma, teetering on the edge of madness. But everyone on board has secrets. And as the voyage continues, the line between sabotage and the supernatural blurs. Shot at Twickenham Studios, Phantom Ship, also released as The Mystery of the Mary Celeste, taps into primal nautical fears. Isolation, betrayal, the black void beneath the hull. It's creaky, sure, and very much a relic of its time, but its eerie tone, methodical pacing, and morbid ambiance make it an atmospheric gem that predates later sea-bound horror tales. There's something especially chilling about horror set adrift. No escape, no land, just rising tension and open water. And Phantom Ship delivers that isolation with ghostly force. Lugosi is magnetic even in restraint, a specter in human form. This film's age only amplifies its haunted power. It's black and white dread, unhurried and deliberate, the kind of horror that seeps in, not screams out. And it's floating, freely, on YouTube right now. Circus of Horrors, 1960. Step right up for the most terrifying big top in cinema history. Circus of Horrors is not your typical carnival shocker. This lurid British horror gem combines plastic surgery gone mad, twisted revenge, and a traveling freak show run by a psychopath with a scalpel. It's sleazy, it's stylish, and it's far more disturbing than you'd expect from a forgotten 60s thriller. Anton Diffring plays Dr. Rossiter, a disgraced plastic surgeon hiding from the law who sets up shop in post-war France. But instead of a hospital, he buys a run-down circus. His plan? Transform disfigured criminals into beautiful performers, then control them with fear. When they disobey, accidents happen. Trapeze wires snap. Animals attack. No one is safe under his twisted ringmaster rule. What makes Circus of Horrors unforgettable is how it blurs glamour with grotesquerie. Beneath the glitter of sequins and fire eaters lies a tale of obsession, manipulation, and rotting ethics. The color cinematography pops with garish life, and the deaths are shockingly cruel for the time. One sequence involving a spiked pit still leaves viewers breathless. Part hammer horror, part noir nightmare. This film captures the cold beauty of cruelty. It's a cautionary tale in circus paint about what happens when one man plays God with knives. and it's been quietly hiding in plain sight on YouTube. House of the Damned, 1963. Imagine a decaying mansion filled with whispering halls and forgotten performers from a bygone era, all twisted by time and secrecy. That's the eerie premise of House of the Damned, a tight 60-minute horror noir where the real monsters are hiding in the shadows, and sometimes in plain sight. When an architect and his wife travel to inspect an abandoned estate, they find more than cobwebs and creaky floorboards. Strange figures appear in windows. Unexplained noises echo through walls. And slowly, they realize the house is not empty. It's occupied by the remnants of a dark past involving a hidden community of deformed circus performers who vanished from public view. What's brilliant about House of the Damned is its restraint. It suggests more than it shows. The fear creeps in through isolation and silence. The cinematography uses wide angles and tight corridors to trap both characters and viewers. The film flirts with supernatural horror, but veers into psychological territory, making the final twist both tragic and unforgettable. Made during a time when Hollywood still feared taboo subjects, House of the Damned plays like an allegory for society's rejection of the other. It's not a gore fest, it's a ghost story for outsiders, and it still chills. Currently streaming free on YouTube, this under 1 hour chiller is a hidden gem perfect for late night fear. The Old Dark House, 1932. James Whale, the genius behind Frankenstein, returned to the haunted mansion formula with The Old Dark House and created something even more macabre. This isn't just one of the earliest haunted house films, it's one of the weirdest, funniest, and most bizarre. And yet most horror fans have never seen it. A storm forces 5 travelers to seek shelter in a mysterious mansion, but what they find inside is far worse than the weather. The Femme family lives there, and they are completely deranged. There's a mute butler, a wild-eyed patriarch locked upstairs, and a deeply unhinged matriarch whispering doom in every candlelit corridor. The brilliance of The Old Dark House lies in its tonal mix. It swings from unsettling to hilarious to surreal, often in the same scene. The dialogue crackles with pre-code wit, and Karloff's monstrous performance steals every frame. Whale uses the house like a living organism. Its creaks and shadows feel alive. Nothing feels safe here, and that's the point. For a film made in 1932, it feels oddly modern, sarcastic, gothic, and self-aware. Lost for decades, it was rediscovered and restored, and now lives on YouTube for those who dare to visit. This isn't just a horror film, it's the blueprint for every creepy house movie that followed. Revolt of the Zombies, 1936. Before George Romero changed the undead forever, there was Revolt of the Zombies, a slow-burning mystical horror film that traded flesh-eating ghouls for hypnotized slaves of war. Shot in eerie black and white and set during World War I, this early zombie tale focuses on an ancient formula that turns men into mindless, obedient soldiers, a metaphor for both colonialism and the horrors of total war. The plot centers on a French military expedition sent to Cambodia to retrieve the secret of zombie resurrection once used by a local priest. But what they uncover is a power too dangerous for any man to wield. A lovesick officer steals the formula to win a woman's heart, turning his obsession into a curse. The result is a haunting meditation on control, desire, and the loss of free will. Though dismissed in its time, Revolt of the Zombies is now revered for its atmosphere. Towering stone temples, fog-shrouded jungles, close-ups of glazed, unblinking eyes. It plays like a waking dream. The cinematography lingers on statues, shadows, and ritual, crafting a visual language that would influence generations of horror directors. This isn't a blood and guts zombie flick. It's slower, stranger, otherworldly. And while it may lack the raw terror of later undead classics, it makes up for it in pure gothic weirdness. You can watch the full film for free on YouTube, preserved as a relic of horror history and an early step toward the zombie apocalypse to come. The Mafu Cage, 1978. Few horror films are as psychologically disturbing and tragically forgotten as The Mafu Cage. This is not a slasher, not a monster movie. It is a descent into madness, cloaked in eccentricity and suffocating with sisterly dread. And yes, it's streaming for free on YouTube, hiding in plain sight. Sissy and Ellen live alone in a crumbling Los Angeles mansion filled with African relics and the ghosts of their anthropologist father. Ellen is the rational one. Sissy, played with terrifying brilliance by Carol Kane, is a feral adult child obsessed with her caged pet monkeys, and eventually something much worse. As Sissy's grip on reality dissolves, she builds a new cage, and this time, she's not putting a monkey inside. The horror comes not from jump scares, but from the steady unraveling of identity, control, and childhood trauma. The film has been compared to Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, but it's far more surreal and sexual in its madness. Director Karen Arthur weaves unsettling rituals, primal violence, and poetic decay into every frame. It's uncomfortable, intimate, and impossible to forget. For years, the mafu cage was out of circulation, too weird, too intense, too ahead of its time. But now, it lives again online, uncensored. A film that doesn't just explore madness, it invites you in, locks the door, and throws away the key. Slaughterhouse, 1987. Grimy, grotesque, and grotesquely entertaining. Slaughterhouse is a late 80s slasher that leans into grindhouse territory with all the subtlety of a sledgehammer. And yet, behind the blood and butcher knives lies a sly satire about corporate greed, rural decay, and the monsters capitalism leaves behind. The story revolves around a bankrupt slaughterhouse run by Lester Bacon, a bitter old man who refuses to sell his land to developers. But the real star is his hulking son Buddy, a grunting, chainsaw-wielding brute who still believes in the old family business. When developers and nosy teens start snooping around, the Bacons decide to handle things the old-fashioned way. What separates Slaughterhouse from your average gore fest is its tone. It's part dark comedy, part social commentary, part pure exploitation. The kills are brutal but inventive. The cinematography has a greasy texture that perfectly matches the rust and rot of its setting. And Buddy? He's like Leatherface's cousin, both terrifying and oddly sympathetic. The film never gained mainstream traction. It was too weird for the slasher crowd, too gory for critics, and too clever to be ignored. Now it's finding new life online, and it's absolutely free to stream on YouTube. This is horror from the slaughter line, bloody, brutal, and begging to be rediscovered. House of the Dead, 1978. No, not the video game. Long before zombies took over arcades, there was House of the Dead, a forgotten horror anthology from 1978 that plays like a cryptic fever dream. Also known as Alien Zone, this low-budget cult entry features 4 chilling tales wrapped inside one disturbing night in a strange funeral home. The wraparound story follows a man named Cantrell, who stumbles into a mysterious mortuary during a storm. The mortician leads him from room to room, revealing the stories of the dead, each more surreal and unsettling than the last. A cruel schoolteacher meets a poetic fate. A pair of psychopathic neighbors compete in a murder game. A private detective finds himself trapped in a voyeuristic nightmare. And one final tale flips the entire structure of reality itself. The tone is pure Twilight Zone, filtered through 70s grit. The acting is stilted. The lighting is dim. But the ideas, the cruel twists, and bleak moralities from D are sharper than ever. Every segment plays like a warning carved into a tombstone. The deaths are ironic, the consequences inescapable. What makes House of the Dead stand out is how it lingers. It doesn't scream, it whispers. The atmosphere is claustrophobic, the story's uniquely macabre. This isn't horror that shocks. It seeps under the skin like formaldehyde. Available free on YouTube, this anthology delivers vintage chills without the jump scares. A slow march through fatal flaws and final judgments, hosted by death itself. It may be obscure, but for true horror collectors, it's a must-watch. Nosferatu, 1922. The shadow that started it all. F.W. Murnau's Nosferatu is not just the first vampire movie, it's the nightmare blueprint. Haunting, hypnotic, and a century later, still horrifying. Max Schreck's performance as Count Orlok feels less like acting and more like an unholy presence captured on celluloid. An unauthorized adaptation of Dracula the film was nearly destroyed by Bram Stoker's estate. But one print survived and spread like a cinematic plague. It tells the now familiar story of a real estate agent who travels to a remote castle only to find the owner is no man, but a creature of the night. The difference lies in its visual style. Expressionist shadows, warped architecture, and eerie silence all merge into a slow, creeping sense of doom. Orlok doesn't charm. He doesn't seduce. He infects. Every movement is unnatural. Every frame a Gothic painting. From his rising from the coffin to the claw-like fingers grasping through the doorway, these images burn themselves into horror history. This is not just a movie. It's an ancient text of terror. Modern audiences may struggle with the silent format, but those who surrender to its rhythm will find a timeless evil waiting, one that still drains the color from your dreams. Nosferatu is public domain and lives freely on YouTube, restored, remastered, and always ready to be unearthed again. A silent scream echoing from 1922. The Brain That Wouldn't Die. 1962. Campy. Mad. Morbidly unforgettable. The Brain That Wouldn't Die is the kind of retro sci-fi horror that starts like a Frankenstein riff and spirals into sleazy exploitation and body horror, all wrapped in atomic age weirdness. It's a tale of love, obsession, and severed heads that refuse to die, and it's streaming in full on YouTube. When brilliant surgeon Dr. Bill Courtner crashes his car and decapitates his fiancée Jan, he doesn't mourn. He experiments. Using experimental serum, he keeps her head alive in a lab pan while prowling nightclubs and strip joints looking for a replacement body. But Jan isn't grateful. She's furious. Trapped voiceless and helpless, she communicates telepathically with a mutated monster locked behind a steel door. This film oozes vintage drive-in appeal, lurid lighting, morally bankrupt science, smoke-filled operating rooms. Everything about it feels like a fever dream caught between misogyny and metaphysical terror. Jan's whispered monologues of existential dread elevate the film far above its B-movie peers. What gives The Brain That Wouldn't Die lasting power is how ahead of its time it was. It explores body autonomy, gender horror, and man's reckless manipulation of nature, decades before those themes became staples in feminist and psychological horror. Jan isn't just a victim. She's a warning. And her revenge? Deliciously overdue. Despite its low budget and laughable effects, the film has built a cult following for its nightmarish imagery and ethically twisted story. If you want horror that's bizarre, poetic, and still oddly relevant, this one's a must-see. And yes, you can watch it free tonight, right now, on YouTube. 1931. Directed by Fritz Lang and powered by a chilling performance from Peter Lorre. Is not only one of the earliest psychological thrillers, it is one of the most unnerving films ever made. And what's more shocking than the content is the fact that it's entirely free to watch on YouTube right now in restored quality. Follows the hunt for a child murderer in a city gripped by paranoia. But unlike traditional horror, the killer isn't a monster hiding in shadows, he's human. And Lang forces the audience to sit uncomfortably close to him. Peter Lorre's portrayal of Hans Beckert, sweaty, twitching, pitiful, and terrifying, changed the face of horror. His final monologue still echoes like a scream in a cellar. There are no jump scares, no monsters. The horror lies in the way dissects the fear of a community and the mechanisms of justice. The police crack down. The underworld joins the manhunt. And when Beckert is caught, it's not by cops, but by criminals who want their own brutal justice. Lang's direction uses light and shadow like a knife. He experiments with silence and off-screen sound, sometimes letting a whistled tune become a trigger for pure dread. And the city itself becomes a character, full of eyes, ears, and judgment. Is not an easy film. It doesn't entertain, it confronts. But for horror fans craving depth, subtext, and genuine unease, this German masterpiece is essential viewing. A haunting, timeless portrayal of evil hiding in plain sight. And incredibly, it's available free on YouTube, waiting to chill you with nothing more than a whistle, with manic energy. The effects are lo-fi but effective. The kills are eerie. And the themes about evolution consciousness and the nature of evil go deeper than expected. The result feels like The Thing by way of Agatha Christie. Shot in Spain with dubbed voices and gritty lighting, Horror Express shouldn't work, but it does. It's clever, pulpy, and way smarter than it pretends to be. And it's free to stream right now. One of the best train-bound horror movies ever made. And a final stop you won't forget. These hidden retro horror classics aren't just free. They're essential, atmospheric, bone-chilling, and unfairly forgotten. So fire up YouTube, dim the lights, and lose yourself in cinematic nightmares that history tried to bury. If you loved this countdown, like, share, and subscribe for more free gems that deserve a resurrection.